Buenas tardes a todos.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Fundación Telefónica auditorium. My name is Pablo. I'm in charge of this venue and the cultural area of the Fundación Telefónica, and I wanted to welcome you to this Fundación Telefónica space and to this event, which is organized within the framework of the Telos magazine. For those of you who do not know this magazine, I hope that there are a few of you who do not know about this magazine, but this is a very important project for the foundation. It is a 30-year history project since the inception of that magazine. Since it was created, it has always focused on technology and thinking how technology affects us as human beings and how we relate to each other as humans. And that is a topic that has always been a source of concern for the foundation, and in times where technological revolution is almost passing us over and overwhelming all of us, I think it is very appropriate. You can access the magazine through our webpage. You can search, you can Google or go to Fundación Telefónica webpage, and you can search for it, and we also publish it in print. And we are very excited because the first issue of this new stage of the magazine was inaugurated with an interview with Amber Cage, who is one of the participants today. And I just wanted to say that we call this Homo Digitalis, this event, because we wanted to explore all the ways in which technology is changing us and should perhaps not change us. And we started this forum on Monday talking about cities. We had Saskia Sassen, who is a sociologist and has received the award, Princesa de Asturias Award, and Carlos Rotti, who spoke about how technology is changing cities and how technology is helping us to read cities better and to understand them better in order to make them more human. On Tuesday, we had a very interesting discussion. For those of you who didn't attend, you can watch it in our webpage with Anders Sandberg, who is a neuroscientist and a transhumanist, as he himself calls him. And we spoke about how technology, or whether technology was changing our essence, the essence of our being, and to what extent we should let technology really get intertwined with what defines human beings. And it was a very interesting talk. And we will finish next week with Diamond, who is one of the most appreciated intellectuals in the US. He has just published his last book, and he's going to speak about the crisis that we are facing and that we know we will have to face in 30 or 40 years' time, which is almost around the corner. How we should perhaps face those, how should we approach that challenge. And that will be next week for those of you who want to attend. And today with the speakers, we have Amber Case, and Rob Roth. We have the privilege to speak about something that in the world of technology is as human as creativity. And what role should creativity play in this technological universe, and what possibilities does technology offer us to express and to articulate ourselves through technology, by using technology and by being not dominated by it, but putting it at the service of humans as and I think that they will both agree with us. I would also like to thank Chema Valenzuela, who is a journalist who will be in charge of moderating the discussion, and thank you very much for your presence here, and it is going to be a very interesting talk. That's all on my part. I just would like to thank you again for attending, and you have the hashtag Foro Telos if you want to comment on the event, or you want to send questions for the Q&A session that we will have at the end. And then I will turn the floor over to Chema, who will introduce the speakers, and we'll make a brief presentation, each one of them, and then we will sit and talk, and they will be answering your questions as well. Thank you.
En primer lugar,
First of all, I would like to thank Fundación Telefónica and also the team of Telos magazine for organizing such an event, such an evening, at times when we all are too busy perhaps to stop for a couple of hours, and it's always worthwhile. When I was called to and I was proposed to moderate this talk on creativity, I thought that it was perhaps the same, technology and creativity. Technology is born out of creativity. It's something which is non-intentional. There are people behind. And at the same time, it promotes creativity or fosters creativity. At least it should. It should allow us to conquer spaces. It's something which is completely human. It is not an alien creation that was taken to the Earth by some kind of spaceship. I think that it is something that belongs to us and that it is very human. We have two people who are going to talk about the topic. Amber, for those of you who know Telos, you will know Amber. Because we look for technological design at the service of humans. When she says that we are cyborgs, it doesn't mean that we are robots, but it is talking about how we are using technology. And let's listen to her to see how she approaches the topic. Amber, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. It's great to be back here. A couple years ago, I talked about calm technology and cyborgs. I will give you a shortened version of that presentation with a little bit of new content tonight. First, could you all hold up your phones really quickly? Okay, I think you did it first. So the faster you held up your phones, the more cyborg you are. And we're all cyborgs, but because we think of this term from Terminator or RoboCop, we miss the meaning of the word. The word did not come from film, from cinema. It came from a 1960 paper on space travel. A cyborg is anyone that attaches an object to themselves to adapt to a new environment. So we don't have to be in the military, we don't have to have something implanted in our head. Already, we wake up next to our phones, and they cry, and we pick them up and lull them back to sleep. They get hungry, and we plug them into the wall. Sometimes we take better care of them than we do ourselves. They're a non-human companion species that lives in our pockets and demands our attention. Yet they are a tool, just like everything else we've created as humans. Some of the first tools look and act the same as they do today. The hammer is an extension of our fist. A knife is an extension of our teeth. These things don't change that much. This is the definition for cyborg, and the original application was for somebody in space. As humans, we build these objects so that we can go into new spaces. We can go under the ocean in scuba diving gear. We can put on an exoskeleton of a car and drive on a highway. And with all of these tools in our lives, we have to remember that the original tools worked side by side with us as humans. We co-evolved with them. We adopted them, they changed us, we changed them. It was this feedback loop. And now we have this idea that we should have smart objects, that suddenly technology should be smarter than us, more human than us, that we should have artificial intelligence. And we see these headlines again and again. Automation will take over the world. We won't have anything left to do. We'll all be out of work. But the original promise of technology was to connect us more, to give us more free time so that we could be more human. How many of you, because of technology, have extra time in your life suddenly? How many of you have less distractions? When you use a washer or a dryer, it does save you time. That is automation. It's good automation. We don't notice it that much. We just press the button. It doesn't yell at us too much, but it does call to us when it's done. But if we think that 20 billion devices could be out there by 2020, and we already have devices that are outnumbering people, then the scarcest resource no longer is technology. Technology becomes very cheap. The scarcest resource becomes our attention. And how we design with or against that attention will make or break our future. We need to have human time to solve human problems. And when you watch somebody get wealthy after they do a technology startup, they often go and buy a farm so that they can experience time again, so that they can put the original computer code in the ground in the form of a seed and watch it grow. As Donna Haraway said, the best machines are made of sunshine. We get a lot from the environment for free. We can work with it. It's our original programming language. So whenever I see these quotes, usually from companies that are excited to sell chips, they say, we could have 1 trillion devices. We could have so many devices. Look, now everyone has a phone in their pocket. We have a smart home. We can keep selling chips and there's no limit to growth. And I say, we don't have enough cobalt, rare resources, rare minerals in the world to support how many self-driving cars we want to put on the road. Plus, we already have a self-driving car. It's a train. So I ask, does this sound good? Let's consider some things that we already have. We have the smartwatch, which is sometimes useful. Sometimes it just replicates everything that's on your phone and distracts you. But then we have people trying to design smart appliances. I think appliances are already smart. They have electricity in them. But I get called by these design companies all the time, and they say, we want to design a fridge. And I say, why? And they say, we want a fridge that locks you out if you've eaten sweets. And I say, I store my sweets in the dumb cupboard, not the smart fridge. Sweets don't need to be refrigerated usually. Then they say, we want a fridge that uses machine vision to tell you when a banana has gone bad. And I say, the banana has a pill, and the banana changes color when it's gone bad. Why do you need a $2 million startup with machine vision to tell me something? This is not essential. I need to know if a pipe in my home is about to freeze, or there's going to be a leak, or there might be a fire. That's crucial information. So we have engineers designing things that we don't necessarily need, thinking that our lives will be better. But we don't need smarter devices. We need smarter humans. How do we make technology that works with us instead of against us to free up more time to be creative and weird and surrealist and have time for dinner with each other? Again, when people make a lot of money, they go off and they buy Italian leather shoes made by hand. People don't want automation in everything. They want to fall in love. They want to watch the sunset. They want to go to vacation in Spain if you're in the United States. So this is what happens when you put all of it together. You get the dystopian kitchen of the future. Everything speaks a different programming language. Everything has a different alert and a different sound, ding, ding, ding. And all of this can be hacked because it's all connected to the internet. And it already has been hacked. When it becomes life and death, that becomes a really big issue. This is petnet.io. They're a pet feeding company. They were very excited to announce that you don't have to worry about feeding and watering your pets again. If you buy this product, you can also Skype your pets and see how they're doing. Maybe if you're not home that much, you shouldn't have a pet. This required internet access to work. And it also relied on a third-party server company that PetNet hired to provide their basic service. The server went down and pets were stranded, and owners did not know whether their pets were alive or dead. They started tweeting at them, "What is going on with my animal?" And you know the customer service response, "Sorry for the inconvenience, we're looking into it." Meanwhile, people's animals could be dying. Would you trust a family member hooked up to a system like this? I asked the founders, I said, why did you not make it so that it was an automated system that just goes based on a clock, that doesn't require extra electricity, that if the power goes out, it could work for 2 weeks? And they said, oh, that was next. We had that in our engineering roadmap. So I said, the base thing that you promised people in your product, to feed and water a pet, was the next thing on your roadmap that you might not get to because you might not raise another couple $1 million of funding. And just recently they released something that said, we will store your preferences for 8 hours. So if electricity goes out and you don't have Wi-Fi, we'll still feed your pets. 8 hours. The average downtime for the system was 2 to 3 days. This is not helpful. We can't put up with this if this is everyday life. Can you imagine if electricity was built this way? It would be out for a couple days, and it would be, oh, sorry, we're looking into it. We won't tell you when it's back up. Suddenly, it's okay for technology to fail, but it's not okay for electricity, and we aren't mad about it. We don't have standards about this. To be an electrician requires a license. It's dangerous technology, and we understand it as such, and yet, with new technology, we think, it's new, it's automatically good. Because it's new, it's exciting. Because it's new, I will buy it. But because it's new, it has the same amount of problems as the old. We just don't know which problems it has yet. I looked at the terms of service, and it said, you hold us not responsible for the well-being of your pet, and we don't guarantee 100% uptime. So no one could get in trouble. They never really changed their product. There are 2 types of time, according to the Greeks. There's chronos time, which is this kind of serious, repetitive time. The time when you have a meeting and you only do a certain thing during that meeting. It's the time where you make a sandwich at a sandwich shop and it needs to be a certain quality every day. And that's good if you repeat a business cycle, but Kairos time is human time. It's the time of falling in love, or watching a sunset, or staring out the window when it rains, or writing in your journal that's not published online, your paper journal. It's the time when you say, why am I doing my job right now? It doesn't make any sense. Why are we building this product? It's the creative time. And if every moment we get into that time, we get jarred out by an alert from our phone or an email, how can we make new weird things if most of our technology looks the same? We have an era of interruptive technology. The way in which it's built by engineers is in perfect laboratories where there's always battery life and there's always Wi-Fi. But in the real world, you have very little battery life. So why would you trust a phone to open your connected home? When you get home at 3 in the morning and your battery is out, you can't unlock your house. Battery life, Wi-Fi, cell network connectivity, it's not perfect. So why are we designing products that only work under perfect circumstances? We should assume that things will fail and make them gracefully decay. Like an escalator turns into stairs when it breaks, you can still use it. We need a calm technology. And a calm technology is not a new idea. Mark Weiser and John Seeley Brown from Xerox PARC created one of these concepts. This research institute was unique. It was in Palo Alto. It's still around, but it's not as innovative. It was around really from the 70s to the 90s, and they were innovative because they hired anthropologists and artists and historians to work alongside technologists to make things for people. That's where we got the graphic user interface. That's where we got Ethernet. There were a lot of psychedelic drugs there too. We need those to think like kids again. If we think and assume that everything is the way that it is, we miss out on making new things, not new social networks, really, actually, new things. They wrote these papers where they said, In the beginning, many of us shared one big mainframe computer. Now, in the future, many devices will share each of us. And this is where they got the idea that the scarce resource will be attention. This is a quote about invisible technology. A lot of people in advertising think, oh, invisible technology, we should put technology everywhere and it should disappear and be surveillance. This is not the original idea. Invisible technology means that you focus on the task and not the tool. When you read a book and you're really into the story, you dissolve. You disappear. You don't notice the book anymore. You're hallucinating characters that you don't even know. Your brain is being a virtual reality. It's doing work. It's imagining things. And those tools and technologies that work with our imagination and don't do too much for us, those are the successful technologies. Or a light switch. You go home, you tap, the light is on, the light is off. There's so much complexity and technology in a light switch, and all we have to do is you can be 3 years old and use a light switch if you can reach it. You can be 100 years old and use a light switch if you have Alzheimer's. And now we're talking about smart connected lights that you need an iPad to use. You need to remember what the light is called to turn it on or off. The Wi-Fi goes out and you can't turn off the lights when you go to sleep. Why are we building these things? Why are we spending millions of dollars on things that mean nothing? There's so many fun things to build. So how do we design calm technology? I'll go through some short ways we can design it. First, technology shouldn't be requiring all of your attention. Only some of it, and only when necessary. A light switch doesn't beep at you saying, look, it's a light switch. Look, I'm a light switch. You just use it. A tea kettle, you set it, you can forget it, go into another room, it will call to you when it's done. When you drive a car, your attention is on the road, and you use your peripheral attention like a foot pedal, which we lost for some reason, to focus on driving. The original mouse had a foot pedal, by the way, so you could scroll down the page with your foot. Sewing machines have a foot pedal. Trash cans have a foot pedal. What happened to the foot pedal? We lost a limb. You don't have to look at your feet to use a foot pedal. But now you have to look at everything. Everything is requiring all of your attention. So the idea of your peripheral attention is that you have a lot of high-resolution information here that you can pay attention to, but it requires all of your attention. But you can still hear. Out here, you can still feel a sense of touch. You can walk into a room with a window and know what it's like outside. A window is a calm technology. So how do you give people information in a calm way? You can give it to them in a very low resolution way. You could have a shower that changes the color of the water based on how hot or cold it is. It could be red if it's very hot. It could be blue if it's cold. It could be purple if it's just the right temperature. This is a light bulb connected to a weather report that my old co-founder and I made. It just shows the color of what the weather is going to be. There's no female AI voice that wakes you up in the morning telling you the weather report. You walk into your kitchen, which is the time in the morning maybe that you're interested in information, and you can feel based on the color of the light what the weather could be later that day. So I live in Portland, Oregon in the United States. It usually rains. This light was usually blue in the morning. On this particular morning, it was yellow, and I knew it was going to be sunny out. That's it. I could feel it. You can change information into a feeling, and you don't have to look or hear this disembodied computer voice. This is another thing that we got wrong from film, that everything should talk to us, and we should be able to talk to it. Unless you have the perfect San Francisco accent, Siri is not going to understand you until you fake one or say it a couple times in a row. So how do we build technology that amplifies the best of what we can do and the best of what a machine can do? Humans are sometimes good at empathy and creativity and silliness and connection and curation. Technology is good at going through lots and lots of information. But with Google, we are not getting the answer. We're typing in something, it's filtering through lots of information, and then we are choosing what we want. It's up to us to make that choice. Maybe the search engine is doing a lot of the work, but we're the ones making the decision. It's really important that we still make the decision, that we still make things by hand, that we still have meaning, and that we're still attached to things at human scale. Because what else do we have? Who are we if everything is automated? When it breaks very badly. So let's automate what we should, and let's have humans do what they're good at. So, technology can communicate, but it doesn't need to speak. Technology sounds bad when it speaks. You can't make it sound good. People love to say that at some point, technology will be a human. We don't expect a dog to be a human, do we? A dog is a dog. They do their own thing. We should have an AI be its own species. We know a dog is good at certain things, and we're good at certain things, but we're a companion species. We need to be a companion species with our technology. Instead of saying it will save the world, we will save the world. We have to. Also, it will be fun. This is an installation by an artist at Xerox PARC. She just attached this piece of plastic to a motor, and anytime anything interesting was happening on the server at the research institute, it would whir around and make a sound. That's all it did. It didn't tell you what was going on. This isn't Slack. It just made a sound of plastic. And the researchers, they would say, oh, something interesting is going on. They would gather around it and they'd say, I wonder where someone's doing something interesting. And they would go on a scavenger hunt and they would find the department where somebody was working on something, and then that was the social network. The computer was only doing one thing, spinning a piece of plastic around in a circle. But the humans were doing the rest. They were going on a childlike mission of discovery, and they were finding who was doing what, and that's how a lot of collaborative work got done at Xerox PARC. The Roomba robotic vacuum cleaner, when it's done, goes dun 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 dun, and when it's stuck, goes dun dun. This is an almost universal tonal language that anybody can understand from age 2. That when something goes dun dun, it's dun dun. When something goes dun dun, it's dun dun. Why do we need to have a human voice that says, I am a Roomba, I am stuck, help? Why? Also, how long does it take to say that? And you have to translate that into how many languages? This is a universal. Why don't we have a very simple language for our appliances? Oh, wait, we do. We have a green light and a red light, and we have ding. This is why people love R2-D2 and hate C-3PO. Because C-3PO might be fluent in 2 million languages, but he's annoying in every single one of those languages. When we try to add voice to our technology, unless maybe it's a driving direction, we end up putting ourselves on pause. We end up being the robots. So the right amount of tech is the minimum to solve the problem. Every new feature has to be supported. Every new thing will keep it from expanding. Every new piece that's not needed will get in the way. In an emergency, when you're trying to get something done, every new connected thing will be hacked. There are ways to design cleverly and small and slow to make long-term products that last for a long time and bring us joy. What about designing things that get better with time instead of worse? Things that amplify our lives and are good tools that work with us instead of getting in the way and making us look bad if we don't upgrade to the next phone every year. We should be able to maintain our technology. It should be made at human scale. There are a lot of companies that have to spend so much money on a customer service department, and if we knew how to fix them and we had our neighborhood fixer, we could make these things last and expand on them. We can have software that worked for communities and governments without having to call support all the time because they changed something at headquarters. Empathy doesn't scale. How do we empower small communities and individuals to make things that work for them? This will be more important as we deal with climate change. So, in conclusion, if good design allows you to accomplish your goals in the least amount of moves and provides a power tool for experts while being approachable by beginners, then a calm technology allows you to accomplish the same goals but with the least amount of mental cost. Because that is our scarcest resource. And we need to go back to have the time to be human, and to enjoy each other's company, and to be living, which doesn't mean we shouldn't be using technology. It's that we should require our technology to be designed better, as well as we designed electricity, as well as we designed the original phone. Because our task, unless you choose to, should not be computing. It should be being human. This is the original Mark Weiser quote. I got upset that Mark Weiser died, and he wasn't around to see the future that he predicted. So I wrote a book called Calm Technology, mostly aimed at people building new products. Then I got really upset because things are really noisy in our environment. You can hear it outside. And so I wrote a book on how to design better sound that informs people. I also made a website that has some principles, but mostly I think I want to represent something that is not, oh, it's all tech, or there's no tech at all. We need to have something in the middle that we can all work on in our own way. There's not one future, there's many futures, and there's many ways to participate. And we should be optimistic, because we're the ones building it. Thank you very much.
Decía Amber que uno de los...
Amber was saying that one of the things that more value are going to have in the future, and it is so in the present already, it is our attention, our time. If an artist does something, is to try to attract our attention and to offer in exchange something that is memorable, that has an impact on us and that makes us feel different. Rob, you will get to know him in a while. He has a long trajectory. He has worked with many famous people, from Rihanna to Bowie and David Harry, but he is characterized by the fact that he uses technology to deconstruct reality and to tell stories in a different way, to tell us or make us feel reality in a different way, based on the use of an unexpected use of technological tools to some extent. And he's going to talk about the process of creation of his last work, Soundstage.
Can I just make one request and have the backlights just down a bit up here so you can see the screen a bit more? Hello. So when I was asked to, do this presentation, I have two this week. I have another one that I've done before called Costume as Character. This is going to have technology in it because I work with technology all the time in some form or another, but it's mostly a breakdown of my last large show called Soundstage. So I called it Soundstage a breakdown, but I think I'm going to call it Soundstage a mental breakdown because it's kind of like the idea behind this presentation is the seed of an idea and how many deaths and rebirths it can have. as an artist, and it's always an insane kind of journey. So this is my bio. I'm a wacky, wild, witchy weirdo, generally, which is also a multidisciplinary artist. So I do theater, film, I perform, I do sound installations. It's kind of all over the place. It's a bit, people don't really know how to pinpoint me sometimes, but I was given the opportunity to do a artist in residency program in New York City at a place called Here Arts. And I pitched Soundstage. That was always the name of it. And I was working with another performer who was going to be in it named Amelia Zirin Brown. She's also known as Lady Rizzo. She's an amazing cabaret star singer. So I was going to build this new performance for her and direct it. So what I thought I would do first is just share with you the final trailer of how it actually came out, and we'll work backwards from there.
My darling, shall we begin?
Gave you to death.
What could be worse than being you right at this moment?
Porcelain, China bowls, ivory cup with saucers hold, the key to meeting you through that snow. Television.
And we are back.
The place that you came from, the love that you knew, it's all here around you, it's waiting for you, the place
So that was the trailer for the final version of this performance piece. That was last year, actually last September. And the way it began, as I said, was the artist in residency program that I applied for with somebody else. We got it. And I always saw it as the second in a triptych. I did way before that, I think 2004 or 5, years are confusing to me, was the first piece called Screen Test that I did with a woman named Theo Kogan, who's the lead singer of an all-female punk band named the Lunatics. And I created the show for her. We developed it over like a 4-year period, and again, did a final presentation. So I will just show you a little bit of that. And this is where the technology comes in. One of the things that I feel about technology is that I always want it to be secondary. I don't want it to be the focus. I want it to be, if it's calling out technology, I'm uninterested in it, as far as the theatrical performance. I want it to blend, and it's a wonderful tool, just like every other tool. Technology, in whatever form you want to have it, is to me another tool, just like lighting and audio and sound. It never trumps anything else. But if it's utilized to create a mood or enhance a mood, then I'm all for it. And one of the ideas I always wanted is how does one on stage represent an internal dialogue without just being a voiceover, like the classic thought bubble voiceover that's happening. So I devised this installation first. This is how it was born, where I shot Theo herself and I projected herself over herself to make this internal monologue dialogue look like a ghostly kind of double exposure. So I will just show you some of the beginning.
My little Icelandic purse and my undergarments, they are an extension of what comes from inside me. Like Candy says, be good, 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 better, better, best, best, best you can be.
Anna, Fanny, Nana, Ann, Zenobia, Zenobia, Lenore, Delita, Empress, Abdullah, Miranda, Miranda, Shakita.
I was watching TV this week, and I saw a lady go into a ray machine and disappear. That was wonderful, because matter is energy, and she just dispersed. That could be a really American invention, the best American invention, to be able to disappear. I mean, that way, they couldn't say you died. They couldn't say you were murdered. They couldn't say you committed suicide over somebody.
Are you ready to perform what you brought?
Yes, it's a poem.
A what?
A poem by Yeats.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Take one.
If I make the lashes dark, and the eyes more bright, and the lips more scarlet, and ask if all be right, from mirror after mirror, no vanities displayed, I'm looking for the face I had before the world was made. What if I look upon a man as though on my beloved, and my blood be cold the while, and my heart unmoved? Why should he think me cruel, or that he is betrayed? I'd have him love the thing that was before the world was made.
That goes on. I'm very goth, as you can tell, super goth. But that was in like 2004-05, and the technology was really just projection on her. I mean, I burned my hands holding it, there was no motion capture, at that point for me to use. But the point was that was the first one, and then I wanted to do the second in the triptych. And so I started working with Lady Rizzo, and I kind of started where I left off, which was, what if this new character was turned around, and what if it was a projection that was more about an emotional landscape that wasn't really a monologue piece. And I designed this costume that could, through choreography and projection, change into many different costumes, that it was a journey of these archetypes of the goddess, of women, and also kind of how they have to go through all of these, amazing, crazy things to wear certain things. That was how it started. So I'll show you what we presented, the first thing we presented. We had a problem. She got pregnant. So that kind of threw a big wrench, a cute little baby wrench in it, but it was going to be impossible for us to continue together trying to develop this because it had taken so long because of her schedule and my schedule already just to present that. And I also felt like I don't know if I was repeating myself, but it was coming off of an idea that I had already done. And I thought, well, maybe this is for the best. So what does one do but go and contemplate? There's ritual. I believe in ritual. And so I went out to this Governor's Island, is a small island off of Manhattan. We had a rehearsal space that we were allowed to use. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. So I took the dress and I put it on myself. And I stood in there and I thought about it. And an entire new idea came to me, and I actually put myself into the show. And then you just start calling the friends for help. So in the next year, I developed more of these projection ideas on objects and bodies, and it's kind of like Tony Ostler had done it, but I always like to do it on a live body instead of just an object. And I wanted to see now if I could take an object and actually really make it human and put an actor's face on a wig stand and see if it could actually feel emotion. And so we started playing with many early forms of it. We wrote a script. It started to turn into, rather than a female and a female, the queer male gaze upon the female goddess, which was much more personal to me, and I realized that that was the path I had to go on. And to my, I don't know if it's luck or whatever, these things happen. I befriended the actress Rebecca Hall, who I don't know if she's a brilliant actor. She was in Woody Allen films and all these. She's really great. And I asked her, would she play the screen goddess that I was obsessed with? And her question was, well, she loved my work. She already knew my work and loved it. She said, do I have to be live on stage? I said, no. She's like, sure, I'll do it. So then I panicked because I thought she was going to say no. But then what we did was just the journey, as having Rebecca start the first scene and shoot the first scene in, I can't remember, 2016. So we shot these scenes, and luckily, this is what I mean about kind of, I don't know, there's this synergy or beautiful accidents, or she happened to have her face already molded for a film she had done. And I called the guy up and asked if I could borrow her face to remold it, and I drove to Long Island and I got it, and he charged me $50, but whatever. I just said, I bought your face for $50, Rebecca. But that I found is such an interesting, it was on the right path. You're on the right path when something like that happens. So we started working with molding and how to make this thing feel human. And we presented our very first presentation of it at the Culture Mart Festival, which is part of the Artist in Residency program. And it was the usual nightmare of trying to put something together. And what I started to experiment with that I've always been interested in is utilizing cameras on stage. Prior to that, I had done that, but it was always with these little camcorders that you could not do real cinematography with them. You would only be kind of there was just one lens, and it was very static, and I never liked it. So I started trying to see if we could use XLR cameras and interchangeable lenses to do this idea of cinematography as choreography. So, because I have such a love for cinematographers and what they do and how you can rack focus or do something that's like an emotion that you're trying to, but I wanted it done in real time. I wanted it performative. So we started working with this DP and creating a world around the character's world that was part of the character. The camera itself on a dolly lens became a character. It was pushed with these buto dancers. Buto is a Japanese form of choreography that is incredibly slow, and you should just look it up. I have an amazing choreographer named Evangeline that I worked with for years. So we experimented with the very first presentation in front of a live audience, and it went great, and people were really taken by it. So then we had another problem. I needed to shoot 3 more scenes. There was a 4-scene presentation. And the DP that promised he would do it quit. And this is a quote from Rebecca one day. She just casually just said, "It'll all work out, it always does," as I'm crying in a bathroom somewhere, trying not to, have a nervous breakdown. And she was right. And it turns out that I had another DP come in who was much more excited about it. And was much more available and actually made the whole process go much better. So just when you think you've reached the end, there's always another door that opens. Now, each section was a different genre of film. This one that we shot this one on Governor's Island, where I went to have that ritual to decide what to do. This was a Dario Argento Italian horror scene that we shot in 2 days. And my hope was to get each section as authentic as it could be, because the main character that I played was obsessed with her films, and I wanted each section to look like you would ask, what film was that? You know, I've seen that film before. So we worked with and that's about your team, and working with a team that really knows what they're doing. So we finished that shoot the summer of, I think it was 2016, and moved on to the music, which is another thing about technology that I can talk about. The access now to having a soundscape and an orchestra is so much more. I never wanted it to be small. I wanted the sound to be big. I wanted it to be beautiful. So through technology, I had live cellists on stage that would play with the backtrack. And the backtrack you could have as many instruments as you wanted. And, you know, I hope one day to do it with the whole real orchestra. But when you can't, technology comes in. And it's, you know, beautiful. So we did a presentation of the music. Not that important that you see it, but it was also something that I had to do personally to get through. These were songs that I wrote. I'd never written songs before. So I had to find the confidence to get up and do this, and I didn't want anyone else involved. It was just me. And that went really well. So the next part that we went to, we have another problem. Everything was going smoothly. I had the next 2 scenes we were going to shoot. I had it all set up. It's very hard with Rebecca's schedule as a movie star and all the people doing it for very little money. And Rebecca's father passed away, and I had to cancel. Sir Peter Hall is her father. He's a very famous director, Shakespearean director. So that was another moment that I heard her voice saying, "It will all work out. It always does." And it just so happened that it was better that we canceled it, because the next time that she was available, there were 2 locations that came out of nowhere that were absolutely perfect. And I encourage, like, this is my point about all of this. There's technology, but there's about faith and having this, like, resolve to continue. There's so many people give up so easily, and technology, yes, can make things easier, but it's still hard. And it's the human part that we have to remember and to continue on, even though you have no idea how the fuck you're going to do it. And it somehow is better later. So we shot the next 2 scenes. It turns out each year we would do a different scene, different genre. So by this time it was 2017, and I couldn't believe how long it took. And then there was the fundraising, and then there was the color correcting, and, you know, all of these things that go into trying to make film and theater merge. That was always my kind of goal, and make something beautiful and poetic. Many of the ideas that I had for trying to hide projectors and, again, not show the technology, really have the technology blend into the background and be magic rather than, oh my God, he uses video, that's so amazing. It's like, no, I mean, I knew how simple the technology was, hiding it, but some people really did. They were confused how her head was talking in a refrigerator that I cut in half, but without telling her I was going to do that. So then comes the long, you know, the really fast, furious way of getting to the premiere of, you know, the rehearsals, the endless rehearsals. And what was really difficult but really exciting was trying to get a very expensive camera, which I had donated, to be choreographed and the cinematography all at once. So it's people, it's camera, and it's also how the camera is utilized. So we would do many tests. There's no sound in this one, but this is live on stage through the camera that is part of this. It's a character. It moves in a very particular, slow, all-observing way around this main character. it utilizes different lenses and colors to give his internal, like, kind of emotional landscape, for lack of a better word. It also, what I realized and discovered is, in theater, you never see the details. And there are many, many details that you can put about a character. Like, that is what film is great for. You can see a microscopic, view of their table and what they're doing. And that I achieved live, finally, where you could, this camera was an all-seeing eye. It was the thing that was almost taking care of him. And it would reveal so many details about a character that you would never see in theater. And also kind of the motion of how it moves with the Butoh choreography. So my Butoh choreographer totally understood it, and she actually looked at the camera as another dancer and how the dancer would move and where it would focus at what time and all of that. So it was an amazing discovery process. Then we were ready to just premiere. So these are stills from the live show. What I also utilize, I'm always fascinated by mirror imagery and what we project out and what is real and what isn't. So I also used a one-way mirror, this mirror above the television that plays all of his VHSs, where the camera actually goes behind it and there's a monologue through it. So this is the camera shooting through the mirror, and I'm mimicking her monologue together. So there was all this stuff about persona and what is real and what isn't, and who is real and who's fictitious. There was also some talk that people thought that it was all her mind, the whole thing was in her mind, or was it all in his mind? Each genre was different. This is the Italian horror genre. There's her head in the refrigerator talking to me. We did some Fellini, some Bergman kind of homage. And the other idea that I'm going to talk about in my other talk this week is costume. And one of the other things I always wanted to do is use everyday objects as costumes. So what I'm wearing here is the doily that was on the table, and it mimics her costume. I would use sheets on the bed and use them as her, and I would mimic her costume. So it was this idea of fantasy. And then my character actually goes into the films and then comes out, and it gets trippier and trippier, and as more pills are popped, the character. So in the end, we did it, is basically what I'm saying. And I would like to leave you with the never give up scenario. So this is the first time I've done this presentation, so it's still new to me where I wanted to go with it, but it's more of a therapy session for me to go through, really, about, the torture of being an artist. But you can ask questions after about anything you want. But thank you. It wasn't very techy.
Antes de empezar con...
Before we start with our discussion, with our dialogue, I wanted to remind you that if you want to ask questions, you can do it from home, if you like, through the hashtag, through Twitter. And for those here, you will have time to think about the questions you want to ask after we hold this discussion. Rob was finishing his presentation by saying that Rob was finished his presentation saying that he didn't know where he was heading towards.
Pero cuando hablamos de tecnología y creatividad,
when we talk about creativity and technology, the creative part and the part that we all like is not that not knowing where you are heading. The positive element that is contributed by creativity that leads us into directions that we couldn't follow with an algorithm, could we?
No, you couldn't. I mean, my point, I don't know. It's the first time I did it, but what I was trying to get across is it's in with technologies, you fail in technology. It's everything she was talking about. These things, they think it's a good idea, and it's like, it's not actually a good idea. You think that you have hit it, and you've actually failed. And it's about the failure to lead you to another. And people are very, very afraid of failing. There really isn't failure. It's kind of like, I think our society makes everything so like, you have to win. Or this is new, like just for the sake of it's new. It's like, well, I don't give a shit if it's new. I actually like the one before was better. So it's this idea of like, you're realizing that isn't the end product. This is to point you to another direction, and you have to work harder. And that is one of the problems that I find that people don't. Everything's supposed to be fast and easy, and it's like, great. But no, not when you're the one creating it. It's going to kick your ass until you get it right.
Yeah, I agree. I find that most people are so early on. People would make their own music, right? They would eat dinner and then they'd like play guitar and they'd be silly and everybody knew a song, and then you'd go to a bar and everybody would sing, and everyone would have a hobby. They were creative, so whatever it was. But now you have people consuming media, and they're consuming more than they create. And a lot of this media is either polished or deliberately unpolished and forgettable. And so people have no tolerance for watching the experience of something being made. Like, not that many people like documentaries unless they're really,
Yeah.
And so when you think about like some of the things that happen in technology, like my grandpa worked on some early artificial intelligence, and he got a big grant for it, and he got really far along, and then they said, okay, that's good enough. That's just what we needed. He said, no, I'm working on something that in 30 years, da-da-da. And they said,
yeah,
it's just this. And it was so upsetting because that's how we got stuck with the mouse. That's how we got stuck with the smart home. That's how we got stuck with a phone, is that, okay, it's done. It's not done.
Yeah.
We need to keep going.
It's a prototype.
Yeah. And we need to be weirder about it. So which is why I'm really excited about like queer media, underground media, is that you're just making stuff that's different. And now that there's a word for it, now there's a license to do something a little bit weirder, and then it doesn't have to be finished or perfect, and it's in that like mess that a thing is beautiful. Like a perfect tree would be really scary looking, but we like a tree because it has grown and there's character to it. We don't have anything to take it back with us to our imagination if it's something so polished, and it robs us of a future that we could have, I think.
Well, that's what I loved about your talk, was this idea of it's like me with the stage. I don't want to see the technology. I don't want to know. I wanted to. If it doesn't create an emotion for me personally, I'm like, nah, again, that didn't work. Like, people come in, but there's this new thing, and I'm just like, okay, well, let's see it. And I look at it, I'm like, oh my god, it's terrible. It's so cold. Unless that's what you're going for. That could be a solution for you to in your performance, if that was the emotion that you wanted to. But I'm never looking for that. I'm always trying to make it. I'm like, is it human enough? Is it, is it poetic? Does it have like, is it believable? Does it make you feel something? That's really what it is.
Ahí se construye cada...
There's a discourse being built which is very optimistic from a technological perspective, and perhaps it leads us to a dystopia. And it is that in the future we are going to have technology and artificial intelligence available that will be able to create art and that will occupy that human space. There are symptoms of mental health that there are three people here from humanities speaking about technology. But do you think that dystopia that they announce is the worst possible world, without imperfection, without surprises? There will be no creativity. This is a one-way street, isn't it?
You start that one.
The joke about this is it's called fully automated luxury space communism. That everyone lives in the same condominium cube. They all have the same quality of life. It's like Switzerland. What great music has come out of Switzerland? I'm sorry if anybody is Swiss, but...
Should I just start singing ABBA now?
Right, okay. See, this is right. So the thing is that if there's no struggle, you know, in Pixar they have these rules of storytelling. You admire someone for their difficulties, not their successes. That the story of human versus nature, human versus human, human versus themselves, like these are the things that we watch again and again, yet we get told this story in newspapers, oh, automation is gonna take away our creativity. It's like, no, you're using it to inspire you, I use it to make music, like it's a tool. And I think we keep getting divorced from that idea. Technology is a tool. When we let it take over, we become depressed, anxious, and we're more likely to commit suicide.
I mean, this question always comes up, and the word dystopia, I think it's a fantasy. I think so many people have this fantasy, and it's why all the movies are like, I mean, I was a victim of it too when I was 16. I loved Blade Runner and all, you know, like, it's like, it's going to be amazing, you know, it's going to be like backlit and all wet and, you know, like, but it's a fantasy, and that fantasy has been marketed or, you know, constantly talked about, probably because it's more action exciting, you know what I mean? Like, there's something about that, it's an action movie. So, I don't think that that's going to happen. I mean, I think something close to it will I mean, there already is in the phones. People can make, you know, video art. And I'm like, oh, good for you. You know, like, it's like, oh, that's really nice, you know. And it's like, it's not like it's already pre-programmed, but you can tell. It doesn't really matter. There will always be someone who needs to make something from the ground up, and people will admire it, even if it's a small tribe. I mean, we were talking in the interview, it doesn't even matter because of what's happening with climate change and where it's going. I mean, that is going to be like the big, in my opinion, I mean, I'm not going to see it, luckily, I'll be dead, but it's like, just what will that do? But art will still exist because it's the thing that we want to sustain. It's the thing that makes us human. And that will be very important, I think. I think there'll be a shift. There's always a shift back. People like vinyl again. It's like there's always these shifts back to something that was before, that was more tactile or more. So the machine could be drawing something for you, and one day you're just going to be like,
yeah,
shut up.
Actually, you know? There's this museum called Science Gallery, Dublin, at Trinity College, and they had me help curate a show. So it was like a Google-sponsored show, and people submitted things. And I said, the theme of the show is what shouldn't be automated. And so we had computers that were drawing things for people, and then you'd go into the exhibit, all these things that a computer was really bad at doing, that was creative. And finally, in the back, there was a Roomba that, in the Jewish tradition of putting like flowers and stones on a grave in a certain pattern, the Roomba was doing that. And people walked in and they saw a Roomba caring for their deceased loved ones, and they started crying because the automation went too far. And it was, you know, art is such a good way of saying what you shouldn't do and calling attention to these all or nothing scenarios. You know, utopia, dystopia. There's nothing in the middle. The future is full spectrum. It's here right now. Also, the past, people are farming with oxen right now. We have all of the past and all of the future at the same time. So these fantasies, like the Blade Runner fantasy, came from Kowloon Wall City, which was this very densely populated space. And it doesn't exist anymore. And so we keep that memory alive. That would be a horrible place to live. We can't sustain a whole world like that. So I don't know, we like this disconnect to where we get film and then we get reality. And, you know, reality is a good home-cooked meal, maybe, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with fantasy either. It's completely in all of my work, because I always said that it's a tricky thing. It's like anything. Fantasy is a means of survival for a lot of people. It's how we, you know, get through. And there's a healthy amount of it, and then there's an unhealthy amount of it. Sometimes you're like, girl, come back to me. You know, like, it's like you're not living. And who's to say? Some people, what's the fantasy? Maybe they want to become this other thing, and that's fine with them. You know, so it's all relative to what the situation is.
En ese sentido,
in that sense, in this world full of notification, this horrible kitchen.
Pero no estamos.
But we are not far away from that. And there are people whose reality is made up of the impact of those notifications in that fight for attention. How can we take up a space from that beyond making a responsible use of technology? At least my opinion is that you are representatives of lines of work that make sense to recover that space. The art as a tool to capture brilliant moments, and the design and technology that the design of technology that is really useful. Do you think that we have margin to win something from that, because the profits of those big technological companies are in the notification, not so much in other spheres?
Yeah. First, we have Chronos and Kairos time. Art gets you into Kairos time. Poetry, what you say at someone's funeral or wedding, these are the memorable human moments. They're in Kairos time, the ones where you don't want to use your phone in that moment. So, of course, we're going to have space for this. What we fail to report on is that there are plenty of very, very, very large companies out there that make a lot of money that produce these tables. There's no notification, these chairs, architecture firms, and yet we focus on social network that's based on ads. You look at the .com bust, and then all these companies supported by ads went away. We think that Facebook is permanent because it's taking our attention. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't around not that long ago. The cell phone wasn't around not that long ago. Technology changes, but if we focus on the technology universals, like a door stopper or a doorknob or a door, and how to make these better, there's plenty of money in that. So these companies, Amazon could be working on a mushroom-based packaging that could grow and decay and cause compost for their things. And instead I just went to their smart home of the future, which had a kitchen that was voice activated. You said, Alexa, tell Delta, the name of the faucet, to dispense 4 ounces of water, which is half a cup. So, of course, it didn't understand you if you were playing music, but that there's a whole department that focuses on that, because again and again, that's considered the future, but that came from Monsanto's home of the future in 1950?
Right.
So what is this like? It's like tonsils. Like, take out the tonsils. We don't need them anymore. Mm-hmm. And then focus on just putting more funding into weird art is going to really, really help expand our world of what's possible, I think.
I don't think those people in those companies understand that in any way, shape, or form. And that's why it was so interesting to hear about the one from Silicon Valley from the past. The past, they actually understood, why don't we hire a poet?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To come in even for 6 months and it's the value of that is null and void now. They don't see it. And it's a new consciousness, I don't know, or a new form. I mean, they don't value it.
It's this perspective that got lost, right? We might have in the past had many different perspectives, and now we have one perspective in these companies, which is make people spend more time on the site. Yeah. We need self-driving cars so people have more time on their phone.
Yeah.
Because that gives you more ads.
I was just thinking, people are probably going to want to be buried with their phones when they die. It'll be in
I don't
the coffin.
think they like their phones that much today. I think in the past, the Motorola Razr phone was so beautiful and pink, that people liked that phone that they keep it.
Yeah.
But I think right now people are like, I hate my phone. It breaks on me. Everyone's phone screen is broken. I don't even think they like it that much. Now
they're in a bad relationship.
It's an abusive relationship with an Excel spreadsheet of likes and comments.
I want to divorce my phone.
I think some people use it well,
Yeah, well, it's a tool. That's the point. It's
the people who use it as a tool.
And I really it's so interesting to think about companies that would have that, that vision to bring in, these different kinds of artists to act, but they can't hear it. They're like, no. That's terrible.
Well, they're publicly traded, right? If a company is publicly traded, it is run by an AI that says you have to grow.
Yeah.
And if you don't grow, then they get fired and the board fires you.
Yeah.
So if it's a privately held company that can, or a monopoly like Xerox PARC was with the copier, then you can put money into this weird department with psychedelics and weirdos. And then
bring back the psychedelics into corporate
now
culture.
people are microdosing, right? But that's not really like they're not. It's the engineers that are microdosing. It's like, wait, you're trying to be a poet. Just hang out with a poet. They will make you feel uncomfortable because every time I hang out with my poet friend, it's like, oh, I hate how technological I am, and I'm so embarrassed that I don't celebrate reality.
But that's the beauty of like having different disciplines and people, and understand language. I don't think my language is great at all, and I sit next to a friend of mine whose vocabulary is like phenomenal, and I'm like, I feel like an idiot, but it's amazing, just, and then it inspires you.
Well, what about cafes, right? So in the past, you had these cafes that a scientist would be a poet as a hobby, and a poet would be a scientist as a hobby, and they would go cross-culturally, cross-disciplinary, hang out with each other, and that was how a lot of science got created. And engineering and art was not based on, oh, you're in a department that you can only be a system administrator.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened, but there's this like weird segment where we got
Kardashians. I blame them. I just blame everything on them.
Really?
No, vamos a empezar ya con las preguntas.
Let's open up the floor to the audience. Through Twitter, they were asking what relationship should we have between technology, the true technology, and the not necessary technology. Do you think that there has to be a relationship? They speak about, we haven't spoken enough about the relationship between ethics, so to speak, what is good in technology and how to build from an ethical perspective, how to build technology, and the relationship between technology and the truth, because sometimes there's a layer in between.
So ethics, how to...
Define primero ética.
Kind of what we were talking about.
Define ethics first.
About with corporations particularly, and this loss of any kind of like, I don't know where you get that back, where you get this, everyone's ethics are different, but...
You get it back when someone dies. That's how the Titanic worked. The Titanic crash, we got modern SOS, modern radio, modern shipbuilding.
Oh, so someone has to die.
Someone has to die.
Didn't somebody already die in a self-driving car?
Yeah, but they were watching YouTube, I think, so it's their fault. You have to keep your hands on the wheel. I think there was some issue, but like it's like
when something tragic happens,
when something
a consciousness is raised that makes you...
Because we're taking ethics out of school, right? So whenever you take out ethics, which we had in Babylonian law, how many thousand years ago? When you take art and ethics and history and all of this stuff out, you learn the hard way, the prehistoric way.
Right.
Why
you shouldn't go in that cave.
Like why you would put it back in. Well, it's like how much modern philosophy came from a cave that we're still basing society on, and then we say, oh, cave people were dumb. It's like, no, they had a history of how many years of like working with the land and understanding that, we're all going to end up in caves because they're good for climate change, temperature regulatory, and
I always think, I don't know if this is an answer to that question. One of the things I find really interesting is when technology is so quick, there's no people are just rude. They're not understanding that we need to figure out a ethical way. Like just the way you hold. I hate when someone is buying something in a store and they're on their fucking phone, and the person is, it's like there is a human being in front of you doing a job. Can you put it down for 8 seconds that it will take to say thank you or no? It's this disconnect we have, because technology is so fast and it's just thrown at us, and we don't have time to adjust into a more, I don't know, coexisting with it.
So maybe a weird answer is that a lot of technology got based on Protestant work ethic. That Protestant work ethic is you have a tiny family, so you don't have a lot of connection. You work all the time. You can't have fun because you should feel guilty. Don't have sex. Definitely don't enjoy the pleasure of life. This is why Spain is awesome. It's not so present.
I was like, I'm definitely not Protestant.
Right. So there's this idea, and then But then this Protestantism spreads through the whole world, through the templated self of Facebook, through the idea that you should be guilty if you aren't working. And then suddenly we have less and less and less and less human time. And then we don't have time to even submit a bug report to get the team to do ethics. You can't have somebody who says, I'm going to give up my career and just focus on making sure when a company kills my pet that there's a lawsuit. Like, we shouldn't have to resort to lawsuits. Like, that's so American.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. You were like, when it's a tragedy, it's like the lawsuit is what really makes change.
Yeah.
They get really paranoid.
Or just a standard.
Tenemos una pregunta.
We have one question over here. Thank you very much, Amber and Rob. Welcome to Madrid. I have a question for Amber, but perhaps Rob could answer it as well. It is a very simple question. 2 years ago, when you visited Madrid, 2 years ago in this same venue, your message had a huge impact because it was quite clear, very easy to understand by us, and it generated a huge impact. However, 2 years after that, the impact on the Spanish political agenda is zero. So I wanted to ask you, what is the impact of all that reflection in the agenda of the American government? Thank you.
Good question. In American society and government, it's not profitable yet to give people their time back. It's still about making self-driving cars so that you can sell more chips and be on Google more and on Facebook more because there's ads. So it hasn't reached the saturation point yet. I think what it is going to happen is that, you know, all of the politics in the United States are just about making money off of people's emotions. That's all. It gets everybody upset, and then and there's a reality TV show going on. So maybe it gets saturated enough, and then people get annoyed and they're done, and then suddenly they will all be very, very aware of media, and they'll start to make different stuff. You know, the underground movement is doing things through zines and cassette tapes, organizing their political protests and things like that. And they're learning that, or to shoot back with laser pointers, you know. So I think it's like they're still using technology, but it's a complicated thing. You know, American companies still like to hire me because they're looking at 10 years in the future. They say, well, can we make something really sustainable? Can we make something that's sustainable and grows? And so there's still a lot of excitement, but there's also, like, I published the Calm Technology book. Google hired an agency to translate that into a marketing campaign about Google being calm. They used the words. Calm Google. Now you have your wellness, and just click some buttons and you're well. You know, but what's really going on is that people are not learning how to self-soothe and handle their own emotions, and so they just click on this interface. It's going to disrupt productivity in a bad way, and then we'll have to come back from it. But it's like when the car got invented. It was the streets in New York were piling with horse shit, you know, and it was a health crisis. And then somebody invented a car that vaporized all of that shit into the air, you know.
Can they do that for Trump?
Actually, not to bring up any politics, but, you know, it's that we wait until the ultimate crisis point, and then something changes. And then,
that's like terrorism too. I love when you're like the shoe bombing. Something has to happen, and then suddenly everything has to change. You know.
And some of the smarter companies are looking at this early, and they're trying to diversify. But a lot of companies are just acting out of panic, saying we must have AI on blockchain or whatever. And those companies will fail. Like those companies will lose market share and they'll die because they were so excited about the new thing. But it's like the quiet companies, like IKEA or whatever, that are being good to their people and supporting them. that's the kind of where the innovation is in being good to people and supporting them and having long-term sustainable growth. It's a lot more fun to work at those companies too. So
one thing I wanted to say about his question was, I think that for political, when you're talking about American politics, it's an addiction. Like the phone is an addiction. It's just a new addiction. So it keeps people very, very distracted. I mean, my mother, very, very distracted now by the phone. And I realized that on a mass level is just, they revel in it because people are just looking at their phones. And it's a kind of a divide and conquer thing, because then you have all of this like Facebook shit, and everyone's like, people getting angry, and it's the oldest one in the book. It's divide and conquer and keep the people distracted, and they won't really know what's going on. So of course there's smart people who are trying to find, but there's so much noise that the mass population is just distracted, and it's perfect for certain people.
I mean, the middle class is being removed and drained of all of their money, which is not good for anybody, because once you get an upper class and a lower class, it's just destabilizing for everything. And so by turning everybody against each other on like race and gender and social class, then you can distract people and they won't.
And you can do it on a tiny phone now.
Yeah, and demographic, and then people are not used to doing anything outside, so they just, I'm very upset, it's not doing anything.
My friend always said that, she said, nothing's really changed. The screen exploded into a million pieces. Like the television has always, it's just exploded, and everybody has a piece of it now, wherever they go.
Yeah, we colonized inner space and not outer space. What happened? We needed to go out, not in.
Bueno, pues la verdad es que nos...
Well, I could stay here for hours listening to you, but I think we have been able to make lots of people not look at their phones for a while. So both of you, Rob, Amber, thank you very much for being here and for sharing this afternoon with us. And to the attendees, thank you very much. You can watch it again on YouTube if you missed something while looking at your phone. Thank you.